Good morning, everyone. Hope you can see my screen. If there's any issues at any time, just feel free to drop in the chat, and our moderators will pick it up and will do the needful. Welcome, everyone, for joining in the webinar on website basics. Just a few webinar etiquettes at the beginning. So keep your mic on mute at all times, and also use the chat window, as we said, to put any issues. Also, as the webinar goes on, if there's any question that comes to mind, feel free to put it on the chat, and our moderators will collate it and then ask at the end. There'll be a question and answer session. Website basics, the webinar today, and a small introduction on me and on company Cornerstone Solutions. What we do, I am basically a data enthusiast, so my background is in physical science and IT, and I'm also doing my postgraduate education in big data analytics. Our company's vision mainly is to help organizations overcome the tech barrier. Currently we are a team of 3, and also we are having an intern on board currently, so we are handling a few website projects and also doing a data warehouse project, which is quite a challenging one for us as well, and we are looking forward to that. On today's webinar, let's move on. Today's outline, what we would be mainly covering is what is the domain, what is the hosting, and how to purchase a domain, how to obtain hosting, and then things like what is HTML, CSS, PHP, and JavaScript, and web application frameworks. We have tried to keep it as non-technical as possible, but your questions could have technical questions, but or we would try to tackle it individually, but this webinar would solely be delivered in a non-technical manner. And again, feel free to ask questions, raise questions, and don't feel shy about the question being trivial or very simple, but always feel free to ask. So let's start. What is a website? So these definitions, as usual, I just picked it up. The internet, a place connected to the internet where a company or organization or an individual enters information. A set of related web pages located under a single domain name, typically produced by a single person or organization. I think most of you will know what websites are, but there are different kinds of websites that you would come across these days, right? And so in the upcoming slides we would take a look at them. A difference between a website to any other application or any other social media page you would have is that it's accommodative, or it could be customized to cater everyone. Different kind of websites are out there, and the main thing about a website is it's custom made to cater to your clientele. So you, depending on your organization, you might have different target groups as your clients. So what website does, it gives you basically a blank canvas for us to do whatever we want in that canvas. So all what we can do, so basically what different between a Facebook page or an Instagram page is, as you would know, Facebook recently also modified their layout. So whatever you put is kind of filtered into that layout that they have. But with a website, the page is yours and the space is yours. All what you can do is open to your imagination. So that's the difference between a website to any other social media outlets that are out there. So how many websites are there? I think question that we would always ask ourselves, and you could see this graph which shows it growing exponentially over the years. One of the reason, I think, is that tech was probably a bit of a luxury, but in the current days it's more of a necessity. So if you look at it, it's the way it's growing, and it's also in a sense become cheaper to access tech rather than it was about 20-30 years ago. And also, if you look at the widely spoken buzzword of Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution is based on the internet, and this is why things like the website has taken off. Let's see the types of websites. If you look at on Google the different types of websites, there are different classifications of how websites are ordered, but I would basically put it under three different types. So basically, first one is a static website, which is also called as a CMS, which is a content management site, where is more or less it's like a blog or a book where you go and you read up something on someone or an organization, but it's only one-way communication. So it's like a magazine or a book where they try to sell their products or services through the website that they have. The second one, what we would like to call is called a dynamic website. So, for example, something like a courier website where you can put in maybe the weight of the parcel and where do you want to drop it off, and then there is some algorithm that runs to dynamically show you how much it would cost you. So this is different to a static website where there is only one-way communication, but in a dynamic website there is a two-way instant communication in that sense. Third one, what I would like to call it, is e-commerce website. I think most of you all know, with the current day with COVID, this is the up and coming website. I think all businesses want to get into e-commerce, and so what essentially is an e-commerce website is where your products or services is even transacted on the site itself. So basically, a customer comes, he orders the product or service that he wants, and also ends up paying for it on the platform itself, where the entire transaction is closed on the site. Let's move on to the main things of a website. So to get a website running, you need three steps basically. So you need to buy a domain, then the hosting, and then once you have both of them, then you can set up your website. So this is one of the main points that we want to discuss today, because I think mostly we would have heard about a website, but I think hardly anyone talks about what a domain is or what a hosting is and what it does to a website. To put it in simple terms, the domain is like the address to tell your clients where to come to. It's basically like giving out, okay, this is where I live, this is the address that you find me. It's not necessarily the address, but it's like the name. It's an example. But the house on where that address is where you host your files. If you still have a domain and if you don't have the hosting for it, it's useless, because there's not going to be any files for you to show up there. And so both of these components, the domain and the hosting, are important. So let's see an example for you to understand it better. Let's take Cornerstone Solutions.lk, which is our domain. So for example, the Cornerstone Solutions is called the domain name, and with the .lk we call it the root domain. So you know there are multiple domains that you could access, from .lk to .com to .info, .io, .global. There are a lot of top level domains that you could access. Essentially, it doesn't do much of a difference. It's just that the governing body changes, but it doesn't mean that a .lk domain, it cannot be accessed from another country, which is probably a usual thought that comes to mind, but which is not true. Any domain can be accessed from wherever the world. It's just that it's kind of, you could call it a branding purpose. So in this example, cornerstonesolutions.lk is the domain name. So basically, when we wanted to start up the company, so we need to go and look up for a name and buy it. If you're interested in getting a domain, at least list down about 3 to 5 domain names, because it's highly likely that the domain that you're looking for is not available. Put out a few names in priority order and then take it up, and then we'll see in the following slides how to go and purchase about it. So you go to one of those sites and then look for the availability of the domain, and then if you have the first domain that you want, well, you've got it, and then all you have to do is just purchase the domain, and it's yours. For an example, when we wanted to take a domain, one of the first domains that we were interested in was already taken, and so we have to go for our second choice. So it's always better to list down a few domains that you're interested in before you go out to purchase. Protocol is a bit technical, we won't be discussing that. Subdomain is something that we will be discussing later, so we'll come to that in the following slide. So this is what exactly happens when a client looks up on the internet. Let's say, for example, one of our potential clients fires up his browser and then looks up for cornerstonesolutions.lk. The request is routed to a big what do you call, you could call it a big database. It's called the domain name server, where what it does is that table looks up your domain name, which is cornerstonesolutions.lk, against an IP address, and then routes that traffic, that request, to that specific hosting server. So basically the internet asks, so you have come to an address, the internet takes that address and guides you to where it is, where the house is, basically, as example, and those web files from that server would be delivered back to your browser. So the client will never see where your hosting is. So basically, in a sense, in an example of your house, your potential clients will never see where your house is, but it's important that the house is there so that the files can be delivered to them when the request comes in. So let's see how we will go about domain and hosting. So if you look up domain and hosting, the most popular sites that come up is these things on the right: GoDaddy, Bluehost, Wix, which are mainly associated with international domains, the .com domains mainly, and LK Domain Registry, I put that is the governing body of the .lk domain, which is the Sri Lankan domain. So anywhere, so you go up to the site, go up on Google, just say GoDaddy.com or Bluehost, and then what you see is where basically you key in your domain name, and then they tell you whether it's available or not, and if it's available, you can buy it. But also what you see is that in these different sites, the same domain that you are looking for could be priced differently in each of the domains, and this is same for hosting as well. The same size of hosting, let's say you're interested in a 5 GB hosting or 3 GB hosting, the same hosting could be provided by two different suppliers at two different costs. So this is another question that most of the clients ask: how is it that it's not the same price? If you compare it with the usual retail market of products, this is not something like that. The companies have their different overheads which they need to account for. That is why the charges are different. It is possible that you get a domain of your interest, you look it up in two different sites, and it could be two different prices. It is quite possible. And another thing to look out for is .com domains you could get at quite a cheap rate initially in one of these sites, and domains are usually renewed every year. The catch is mostly with the .com domains is you might get the .com domain at a very cheap price in the first, maybe for the first 2 or 3 years, and then subsequently in the renewal later on they might hike up the price. So it's a bit of a bargain, and you built your brand name, so you don't want to lose the brand name anymore, so you end up paying for it. But whereas you see the LK domain, it has not happened thus far. It has always been at a maximum of 3,000 rupees for the domain per year, and it has been that for some time now. So if you want to be safe on that side, LK domain is an easier place to go to. But if you are okay to take that bargain on leveraging on the name with the .com domain, so that's the other place to go to. It is possible that your price of renewal might get higher down the years. Domain is just the name, as we said. Hosting is the space. So basically when you go to buy hosting, every site would ask you, okay, how much of size or how much of bandwidth do you need? So size, in the sense, just imagine like a hard disk. Let's say you go opt for a 1 GB hosting, which means all the files pertaining to websites and anything else you want, you could only have a capacity of 1 GB in it. So the moment you exceed 1 GB, you'll have to increase your hosting space or either delete some archive pages of images or videos or something to kind of redeem your space. Always hosting is sold on the space, so there might be to 1 GB to 5 GB to unlimited. It's priced accordingly. So bandwidth is another thing which comes with hosting, is how much of files can you transact per month. So let's say if you can go for a 1 GB hosting, but let's say your bandwidth might be, let's say for example like 100 MB per month. That means you could upload only 100 MB worth of files to your server per month. So if you have a big image or a big video to upload, you might have to either split it or wait for the next month to upload it. So be careful when you buy hosting of the bandwidth as well. These are small factors that eventually come back to bite you once you bought the hosting. Don't just go for the size alone, but also look at all the other parameters that they list out when they are selling the hosting. Usually all of it is mentioned in, maybe each supplier has about 3 or 4 packages, and it's said there what do you get with each package. And the last point here is, for a website to function, both domain and hosting need to be active. It sounds simple, but the thing is, okay, let's say we've got our domain, we got our hosting. Both domain and hosting are renewable services. So it's not an outright service or product that you buy and keep it lifelong. So every year you'll have to renew it. Some give the option of even renewing it for up to about 3 years with a slight discount. So let's say you have your hosting and your domain running, and let's say your hosting is still active but your domain has expired. Your site will not work because your domain is expired. Basically, if the client comes up and looks it up on that DNS table we initially talked about, your name is not going to be there. Let's say your domain is active but your hosting is expired. Your name is going to be there, but the server that it sends you to is not available anymore because you haven't paid for that service and you've lost that service. So basically, for domain and hosting, both of them need to be active at times. So initially what we saw is, I think a lot of companies had their own servers in their server rooms where they basically run their own hosting. So domain name is purchased, but they run their own hosting. But this through time became expensive. Hosting is, though it sounds like a new term, just think of it as a computer that runs all the time. It's like a server. It's kept on all the time. So companies previously did go for that option. They had a computer or a server running 24/7, 365 in a room, and also needs to be kept under air condition because you don't want the servers heating up. And also you need those air conditions and the server to be connected to UPS, so that any power cut doesn't affect your website. But increasingly the maintenance of these things became costly, and most of the companies are now moving away from on-premise servers to cloud servers. That is buying hosting, exactly, where you buy the hosting from a different company, where that company would make sure that their server is running in an AC room and all of that. You don't have to do that anymore. That the company would basically give a small space, the space that you want for you, for that price you want, and that they will manage all the other services of maintenance and make sure it runs 24/7, 365, that the server is on. So let's move on to subdomains, something that we said we would come back to initially when we showed the slide. So subdomains can be used for separate services that you offer. For example, if you look at Gmail, if you would remember some time back, I think every one of us type gmail.com on our browsers. But if you would realize from lately, once you even type gmail.com, it redirects you to this subdomain that you see on the left, which is mail.google.com. Even if you look up for Google Maps, it would be maps.google.com. For Google Drive, it would be drive.google.com. So where you see all of this is under the google.com domain, but you see the subdomains keep changing for the different services that you offer. This is the newest practice that most of the companies follow. Earlier, if you would have seen, it goes like, say google.com/mail or google.com/maps or something like that. It's the older architecture of the things. But nowadays, what you see is the use of subdomains for different services. So where you can use a subdomain. Again, the number of subdomains depends on the hosting service you buy. So you make sure that you have basically everything that you need. Hosting is sold depending on the size, so as we mentioned previously, and also it's dependent on other parameters like bandwidth, number of subdomains, number of databases allowed. So make sure that you have all of these noted down and what you need. And the size depends on what you want. So basically, once you have a domain, what you could do with it is actually endless. But most of the companies, what they do is they just use it for website and website alone. So I work with a lot of SMEs, and mostly what I see is So they have the domain, they have their website, and they would have their visiting card as well, which would carry the name of the company is ABC, but the Gmail would carry something like, abc at gmail.com or something like that. So there goes your branding, because the moment you have a domain, it makes sense for you to push your brand through that domain. So once you have a domain, let's say for example cornerstonesolutions.lk, with that domain you are entitled to email addresses. So anything that we want in front, so basically you see trainings at cornerstonesolutions.lk, which is the email address that we used for the webinar to circulate the flyers and to book your registrations. We have another email address called info@cornerstonesolutions.lk, which is given out and distributed publicly for any queries on a company. These emails depends again on your hosting, the size you want, and again how many accounts that your hosting could manage. So the moment you buy a domain, you are entitled for email addresses carrying that domain. And if you want any systems running, basically any web-based systems, any databases running, again it's available. Since you get your hosting, which you have your server for yourself, any services that you want could be run on that. For file storage, I think some of the companies want archive storage, to be stored. Again, hosting is what makes it possible or not. So make sure that to list down the things that you want to do as a company. How many email addresses do you want, how much space are you looking at to store your files, and then go for the option of hosting to buy how much of it you want. So a little bit of technicalities, but we are not going to go deep into it. So all websites run on programming languages like any other computer system. So you might have come across this kind of jargon before if you look up something. So HTML is fundamental to all websites. CSS is another type of language which is used for styling essentially. So if you look sometime back, I think in the mid 90s, you would have seen bare bones site with links just listed with bullet points in blue. Once you click them, it turns purple. Those are the basic websites which are running, or even the Google search, for example. It runs on minimum styling in order to increase performance. But once you get into any site, all of those styling you see, from the color to everything, from the boxes to the animations, everything is handled by CSS. So PHP is another language which is a server-side scripting. For our example of we said about a dynamic website, having you pick the weight of the parcel and where you want to send the parcel. The website magically gives you out a number, how much it is. The magic behind this is PHP. So that is a script which is logically programmed to look up all your parameters against the database and give out the value to you dynamically, so that you don't have to shoot out an email to a supplier and then wait till the supplier gets back. JavaScript is a client-side scripting language which is mostly run on the front end of a website where the client or a user interacts with. Mostly those scriptings are run in order to probably validate forms. For example, if you fill in a form to say, hey, you got a extra digit there for your NIC number, or your email address doesn't carry an @ or a dot, those kind of validations are run through JavaScript. So make sure that your data is clean before it gets submitted into the database. Web designing frameworks is the newest way of actually doing websites. 10-15 years back, if you want to do a website, what you need to know is you need to know all of these languages, so at least two of them to start, HTML and CSS, so that you start on a notepad file or a notepad++ software where you hardly see how it looks like, you just see the code. But nowadays what happens is you have web designing frameworks, WordPress, Wix, Joomla, Drupal, Magento, which is an e-commerce framework. Basically what it does is the framework gives you the option of drag and drop usage of elements available in the framework. You could drag and drop an icon, a box, or maybe type in some text, simply easily change the color, bold it, increase the font size. All those actions are converted to HTML and CSS language by the framework. So basically, this framework works like a translator where he understands the user's actions and he translates that into machine code, which is HTML and CSS. Because ultimately, for a website to work, you need the website to carry these languages. Even though we like it or not, eventually it will have to be HTML and CSS and PHP and JavaScript. But with frameworks, this kind of gives you another layer on top where the user can interact easily and do about their actions, and you can easily see a look and feel of how the website looks or should look, and you can customize, and then that framework would convert that into machine language. Frameworks like WordPress gives you a subdomain for free. So let's say, for example, a company ABC wants to just try out learning on WordPress. So you could go on WordPress.com and just get a free subdomain, which would always carry the WordPress name in it. So it would be something like abc.wordpress.com, but it's still a public website which could be accessed by everyone. So most of the people use the WordPress subdomains for blogs, which is free. But if you want to brand under your name, if you want to remove the WordPress name of the subdomain and get your own name, you will have to pay. So that is again back to square one of getting the domain and hosting. Even though WordPress and Wix and Joomla, some of those frameworks give an option of you could also enhance your code with hard-coded HTML and CSS. So if you want to learn more about languages, you could look up w3schools.com, which is a very good resource for learning these languages. So which will enhance your capacity of understanding what this language means. For more information or any technical questions, you could always feel free to connect with us. The mobile number for WhatsApp, or you could call us up anytime. And the email address is info@cornerstonesolutions.lk. Hope this webinar was useful.